I made a few cracks at homeschooling, mostly because of my own experience and the stereotypes involved in them. This has caused some rather unhappy responses from homeschooling parents, specifically secular ones. Being raised a homeschooler until my sophomore year, I figured I would go through some of the pros and cons of homeschooling and some of the pitfalls that can and do occur that can prevent your child from integrating into society. I have a feeling this will be a rather controversial topic, and some of the things I might be suggesting might raise some interesting debate on my channel. While people look at the stereotypical homeschooled child as extremely smart, but with no social skills, these issues can easily be overcome by doing things like getting the children involved with community organizations for kids and making sure they're in good areas with good neighbors. I grew up out in the country where we had to walk quite a bit just to talk to people. However, there are a lot of subtle problems that the average well-meaning, well-informed parent will run into if they try to homeschool. The problem is that so many parents teach the children how to be different because it's probably a better way to live, but they aren't taught how to deal with the reality in the way it actually is. Children need to learn a balance between reality and potential reality. Only by understanding reality can one actually make the potential and ideal reality become true reality. One of the downsides of homeschooling is that one of the parents has to be home or perhaps work part-time. Actually, one of the parents having a part-time job is recommended. My mom spent 15 years jobless raising us and now has a fairly unrealistic view of both reality and the job world because she has had little interaction with it. Maintaining some form of job that forces you to work with others will help generate useful experiences that you can train your children better with. When there are no jobs, like in this economy, one parent being jobless isn't a problem these days. But considering how hard it is for one parent to bring in all the money, one has to make adjustments. Living more simply can help, however. Teaching children to be content, how to cook and make things most people buy is a major advantage that can be integrated into your homeschooling material. Another downside of this is that children are now severely judged by their material possessions, which can make things difficult in terms of relationships and other kids relating to them. I recommend the kid have a few sets of relatively modern brand name clothing, maybe a few modern toys, but ensure they understand that the person is most important and materialism is not something to be idealized. Popular name brands are more battle armor or a way to blend in. Otherwise, shopping at Goodwill and yard sales is a very good way to teach your child thrift and contentment. None of my clothing growing up matched anything that was even remotely fashionable, and I have a feeling that had an effect on how I was viewed and treated. Yes, my mom dressed me funny. In homeschooling, you get one-on-one teaching. If something isn't working right or your child isn't getting it, you can easily alter your teaching methods and even your schedule to produce better results. Our schedule got so efficient that in the last 4 or 5 years of homeschooling, only 4 hours a day were spent in traditional studies and the rest of the day was spent cooking, doing arts, crafts, and getting exercise and private reading. A major downside of homeschooling, however, is that homeschool kids as adults have serious problems dealing with inefficiency. I have to bite my lip constantly at the wasted time, energy, and resources in a job that occurs because the system does it in a certain way. Ensure your child is exposed to inefficiency, especially professional style inefficiency, so they can learn to put up with it. I have probably lost a job or two because I was too vocal about the current system and what needed changing. The jobs I lost were because they just wanted me to come into work without asking questions, and I tried to shake things up about my job. I was let go because they said I didn't seem focused or enthusiastic about my job. Sadly, if I see waste, like some of my efforts are being wasted, then no, I'm not going to be happy about it. This is pretty common among homeschoolers from what I and a few therapists I know have found. The professional world is rife with waste and inefficiency, and it differs from job to job. But that's going to happen with a large group of people. This is why people have so many problems seeing good in government, because they can focus on all the inefficiencies that occur. Big business has many of the same wastes, however, and the tiny cost of overhead of the government doing something tends to more than make up for the wastes and inefficiencies. In a small government, small organization, the overhead is huge compared to the amount of services provided. Large groups of humans are inefficient, so ensure that your kids get exposed to some inefficiencies in their earlier life so they can get used to it. Of course, the majority of your homeschooling can be as efficient as you like. If homeschooling was the norm, the professional world would probably be a lot different and probably a lot more efficient. But since the majority of people are raised in a regular school, we have to be able to deal with the majority. Another upside to homeschooling is that teaching style is usually better. My mom would read us novels or social studies books to us while we would do arts and crafts. Studies show that you can actually retain a lot more information with your hands moving than sitting at a desk being bored to death. All studies have shown that the modern American public school is run completely opposite to how the child evolved to learn and develop. Studies show that children in daycare have 3 times the stress hormone cortisol than children taken care of at home, and I wonder if this is true for the public versus homeschool kids as well. This can become difficult for homeschool kids in college because it's not set up to be easily learned the way the brain is set up either. When they have all the basics under their belt, make sure they start getting difficult college-style homework to do. This will have them ready to go for the more tedious stuff. We come, of course, next to the problem of socializing. Many parents are aware of this problem. The children are allowed to socialize in things like sports and social programs to allow kids to learn social skills. I grew up in the country, of course, as I said before. I grew up with my siblings, all 5 of them, as my only real friends. We had kids we knew in homeschool group, but having them over or hanging out because our family only had 1 car was something that happened at best every 3 to 4 months. Church in the monthly homeschool group was the most socializing I got. I was, of course, way into the message during Sunday school and was an expert on the Bible, while most of the other kids saw me as a weirdo and probably a teacher's pet for actually caring about and enjoying learning. If you homeschool, I do not recommend doing so out in the country. Make sure they are in a good neighborhood where they have high access to quite a variety of different children to increase their opportunities for making friends. In high school, I had no close friends, not because I wasn't likable, but because no one could relate to me at all. My tastes were so eclectic, no one could relate to me. Which brings me to yet another problem we run into. I couldn't relate to them either. I grew up with maybe an hour or 2 of old, wholesome Disney or musicals a week. With all the musicals I was raised with, I swear my mom was trying to make us gay, even though homosexuality was, of course, evil to her. The rest of the time was spent reading. Unless you plan to move to a different perfect country where people read more than they watch TV, make sure they're exposed to at least a little bit of popular media. And ensure a balance, maybe an hour a day or so, and watch it with them, breaking down the problems you see in the show, like, say, inherent sexism, and use it as a learning experience. Mind you, this will, of course, lead them to be accused of overanalyzing all TV, but in this day and age, with advertising being as it is, that's not a bad thing to have. Knowing media is part of being normal and can be an icebreaker in making new friends. After moving out of the house, I spent hours playing catch-up on watching TV shows alone, learning the shared experiences of the average person, which increased my understanding of expected social norms. Watching British and Japanese TV, however, showed me alternative and more nuanced details about human interaction that the average American show is always extremely vague about. Balance is essential to home education, giving them the best chance at a normal life while showing them what life is currently like and what it could be like, and why it's like that is the essential role of every parent. Many, like conservatives and libertarians, view the person as purely individual. Many, like the communists, view the person as merely a part of society who needs to keep up appearances and not shake things up. Just like how light is both wave and a particle, science says we're a mix of both, and we need to strike a healthy balance between the two. Unlike how I was raised, we need to raise our kids to be able to think for themselves, but also be able to function in a group.